Howdy, you delicious people. I'm here today to review Shopping from 1994. The way in which that these people are going on into their shopping is giving us the five-finger discount, or maybe the one finger, which is to be the middle. And so, giving the finger to all these stores is like, man, I'm not going to go on and play your game of giving you money in exchange for goods. No, 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 no. I'm going to just wait till your stores to be closed, crash in it with this car, and steal everything that I'm to go on and want. Which, honestly, when it seems with Billy and Joe stealing things, it doesn't really seem like they're really stealing all that much. Just like a couple of things here and there, and then they leave. So Billy and Joe is to give us this Bonnie and Clyde like flavor to this film, as well as also kind of giving us a Western kind of vibe to this movie, anyways. But so Billy and Joe go on and they bash their way through these stores. Kind of reminded me of like Blues Brothers when Dan Aykroyd and John Belushi bash their way through the mall, and then they're just driving through the mall like, oh my god, this mall has everything, and like honestly, with just kind of the chase scenes in that movie and the stuff that they pulled in that film, was really just kind of very fascinating and just kind of reminded me also just of this movie. So we have Billy, who is to, of course, be a character who just got out of prison, and it seems that he is at a fast pace of making his way back there. And immediately when Billy goes on and sees Joe, it's like, well, obviously we're gonna just have to steal another car so we can go on and just continue to just start shopping again, because Billy will go right back to his old ways, even though also he is to go on and tell Joe, hey, yeah, like I just got out of the prison and this and that. But so the two of them start to go on and they start to shop, and eventually they'll come into an opposition beyond just Conway, who's to be this police officer that's trying to stop them from doing their dastardly deeds. We would then go on to find a character known as Tommy. Tommy is to, of course, go on and trying to make a living off of stealing and trying to get a distributor named Venny, so he can go on and make money off of these stolen goods to then in turn try to make his way out of this town. As we would go on and have characters like Venny, who's to be kind of this rich guy who's looking at his way of seeing this town as filth and who could live in a town like this. So we have at certain points where Tommy is trying to not only manipulate Joe, but then eventually later on in the film trying to manipulate Billy. Tommy goes on to manipulate Joe by just simply saying, hey, like, me and you are kind of very much alike. Me and you are to go on and realize we're kind of better than this town, and we need to just kind of as soon as we can figure out a way out of here. And Joe then goes on in the movie is to try to tell Billy, it's like, well, hey, Billy, like, I'm starting to get kind of old with doing what we're doing here, as well as also Joe is to go on and realize that she does have feelings for Billy. And eventually we culminate that by the kiss between the two of them, and Billy is going to thrust his head to the side and just be like, well, Joe, sex in the 90s isn't as safe as it was in the 80s. Okay, Billy, whatever you have to just justify in your brain for all the loving isn't to be go on and be as safe. Uh, just throw a rubber on, Billy. Come on. Tell Joe how much she means to you. But anyways, so we eventually go on further in this film to get Billy manipulated by Tommy, as Tommy finds out that Billy is to start to window shop through this mall, and Tommy then comes to Billy. It's like, well, hey, like I know that you're going on and you're window shopping this mall. Hey, how about you and me kind of work together? And like, if anything, like you going and crashing through this mall, you're not really gonna get a whole lot out of this mall. Like, if anything, we work all together and we all steal, then we'll all get a good payday out of this. And Billy's like, oh yeah, yeah, like that could probably just sound really good to you, but Billy, as much as possible, wants to go on and just kind of be, with the exception of Joe, like his own man. So once the chess moves start to happen here and the pieces fall the way they do, this movie ends up becoming very interesting, as well as also to have that kind of wrapping up of this film. And this movie, I was to go on and just feel that this movie ultimately was to just be fun. I really did like and enjoy this film. This movie is to, I believe, be available on Tubi TUBI right now, but if not, I will go on and recommend two apps that I've been using for a fairly long bit of time. I think you honestly need to go on and go through a Google search to find that these apps are still available. Uh, but if not, then logically, I think I can go on and possibly recommend certain apps that you might just need to download an APK of and be able to get them and be able to see just a bunch of for absolutely free. Uh, because logically, I guess that is to be a way that you can just see a number of films now through these bootleggish like apps. So I'm gonna recommend this first app to be like an app called Zelifonic, Zelivonic. The logo of this app is just gonna look like a Tetris piece. Then also you would go on and have Moopzy, Moopzzi. The logo of this app will have a green M on it. So logically that'll be the Moopzy app. Both of these apps will again be things that I've used for a very long time, as well as also be things you can go on and be able to find projects that normally you would need certain apps with certain subscriptions. But hey, if you have the money to do those things of subscriptions and what have you, then that's you. That's okay. Or if you want to go on and even buy physical media and stuff like that, hey, yeah, cool. Like, uh, however you want to go on and you want to dive into your uh, moving watching ways, then like there's no wrong answer here or shows because it seems that I go on and from time to time review shows. Speaking of shows, during the time of which that I of course was gone for a week, I had gone on and watched a bit of content and eventually had gone on and watched a YouTuber that maybe could end up having me go on and kind of find some newer films that I've not gone on and seen quite yet, or maybe just some stuff that I have probably seen, and I'm just like, hey, let's rewatch it and put it on, slap it on YouTube because why not? So I had gone on and seen the Shutter series Creepshow. I watched it and actually really did enjoy it. So if you're kind of looking for something to watch for Halloweener season, then logically, I would assume that Creepshow would honestly be really good of a thing to check out. I believe that Tales in the Crypt is actually going to get a reboot soon, so uh, maybe you're going to go on and check out some Tales of the Crypt stuff. That would make a lot of sense. Uh, I'll go on and I will also state that I'd recently been watching quite a bit of wide variety of Stephen King films, and maybe at some point I may plop down and watch another Stephen King film out of those that I haven't seen. Because I'd gone on to watch like the classics, like the Cujos and the Shinings, and just a number of other films that I've probably seen quite a bit of times and what have you. I am also to go on and be just sifting through certain IMDb lists and trying to find some very interesting movies. Oddly enough, while I was going on and watching Cujo, I had just kind of been interested to see if there were certain dog films, and I kind of went down the rabbit hole of just kind of finding certain movies within this list of things that I could just viably use somewhere down the road. Uh, so eventually, I'll go on and I'll eventually present how I was to go on and find those things because those will probably come up at some point. Other than that, as far as future reviews is to go on and be concerned, I'm to go on and be interested in a film that I saw called Street Trash. I hadn't actually seen it, but I'd gone on and heard people talk about it. There was a YouTuber called My Killer Podcast who had talked about that film. I'm kind of torn about whether I should go on and just talk about the original or the remake because I kind of liked both as far as its visuals and kind of the way the stories break down is. So I'm kind of fighting between whether or not to watch the remake or the original. Uh, I had also gone on and seen quite a bit of other projects that my killer podcast had gone on and talked about. Like, oh yeah, I remember this film, or yeah, I know about this film's existence, but I've never gone on and actually seen it because logically, at some points, I had seen so much freaking content that eventually, at some point, there's going to be some most of the time things that I've heard of, but not exactly physically gone on and made my way to actually effing finally see just because so many other things just kind of get in the way. But either way, maybe I'll finally go on and I'll actually watch Hooker or other bits of titles. I think also my hesitation with probably watching Hooker was just because of the name. So it's also just like, this is just going to be a skin movie? I don't know. But anyways, so there might just be a lot of fun titles, regardless of it being outside of October or not, that I'm still going to go on a review and do here because I really could honestly just say, hey, I just need to fill um, content slots with something. And regardless of genre or whatever, I'm just going to keep plopping this down and hoping for the best. So, with that said, I think it's about that time to just push into spoiler reviews and the spoiler review thing that I go on through because it is spoiler time, spoiler time. It's about that time I'm going to spoil this movie. Let me know in the comments below what is be your favorite shopping or seasonal film that is to kind of be a thing that we're going to go into via the following days of time in recent Vigilia or whatever. Because logically there's going to be of course Halloween coming soon, Thanksgiving around the corners, and Christmas. So if you have any interesting 2 cents to just drop down for certain recommendations, I will be happy to look at those and probably say that I've either seen them or know of them, or they will probably be things that I may even look into and review upon this channel. Also, uh, let me know in the comments below what is your favorite crime film. Maybe you like the crimes. Maybe you like the thievery. Maybe you like the people that do the bad deeds that they end up getting punished for. At the end of the day, go out of your way to just rattle off just even gibberish if you just want to just have just something to say in the comments below, because regardless, that'll go on and that'll help out the channel. Because it will be a thing to realize, hey, people do exist. And also, it'll just be a funny gag. Otherwise, it just does help out the video, the channel, me as a person. But either way, regardless, your view is to always be more than if anything else, just a thing that is to still be helping out the channel, and there doesn't have to need to be anything more than that, but I do appreciate it. So, with that said, since it is at spoiler time territory, I'm gonna whip out a cast list of our insist to go on and help me rattle off what is to transpire within this entire film, blow for blow, scene for scene, lip locking with a mannequin at some certain points of this movie. That is to just be eventually a thumbnail that is to be presented within this whole bit of structure of putting together a video. Let's go on into whipping out whatever I need to whip out to just rattle off this entire film and then calling it a day. As I'm going on, and also, I had a bit of content of videos that I did at some point in this channel that eventually ghosted their way into disappearing. But I'm to go on and look at all those videos back again and to basically cherry pick and choose what was to be on those videos and probably just individually making them all reviews because a lot of those bits of movies are probably still be viable and interesting to people. Uh, but also, those will also just be future bits of content that I can go on to talk about. So logically, I will have that to be a number of things that also I god dang so many like so many things to just choose from, but also uh, with that also said, regardless, I'm sure they're not all great ideas, but if anything, they'll just still be things that I can just push and hope for the best. So let's pause here. Let's get out everything I need to get out and rattle off this movie. So let's pause this here. Alright, spoiler time. So the very beginning of this movie, again, we just have to, as for every goddamn film that is to go on and exist in our world, when they always go into the opening of movies, they end up giving us the scenery shots. But at least with these scenery shots of this town, at least the stuff that they choose is a little bit more interesting than just hey random building here random building there so on and so forth. Like at least here, like the things that they use are actually kind of visually interesting, as well as also there's like uh kind of pollutant areas of certain kind that they kind of use within the beginning. So yeah, like the things that what they were going with were actually pretty artsy. So I was really going and just even like the opening, which is kind of a rare case when it's just to be scenery shots. But anyways, Billy, who's played by Jude Law, is to be in a prison cell, and he is to be ushered by two men into uh, seemingly a room where he's to go on and talk to Conway. Conway, who's to be this detective here, goes on and tells Billy next time it won't be 3 months. Uh, you know that, don't you, Billy? Don't you? And Billy looks at Conway. It's like, well, hey, can I go now? And Conway's like, well, yeah, I guess if you've learned your lesson. Have you, Billy? Have you? What's prison taught you, Billy? Yeah. Billy is to go on and say, yeah, to not get caught. So the next thing we see is Billy making his way to this car. A car that is to stop exactly at a point where it has this big, huge lettering that says no parking. So Billy ends up getting into the car and he meets up with Joe. As Joe is to go on and look, or as Billy is to go on and look at Joe and realize, oh, yeah, nice hair, because he has been gone for quite a while. And Billy is to start to look around at the car, realizing there's this little dog, little bobblehead, little Dalmatian. I don't know what is the fascination with this director or the people doing this film about Dalmatians, because we'll start to see that throughout the film. Like once we go on and we pan around this store at one point in the film, they cut to these Dalmatians. So I'm like, is that just a theme in the movie that they just kind of keep bringing up Dalmatians? Maybe that was just an interesting, just kind of visual choice. But I don't know why they just kept painting to that. It just kind of seemed very interesting. But so we have Joe that goes on and asks Billy, "Hey, what was it like inside?" And he's like, "Well, crowded." So Billy goes on and hands Joe this candy. It's like, uh, "Well, hey, I gotta warn you, it's a little bit old." So he gives her this candy, and it's to be these like Valentine's Day hearts. And the first one she gets has "Be Mine" on it, and Joe ends up saying, "Oh, romantic crap." Uh, so what's first? Because she has this Irish accent. She's Irish. She goes on and talks about Ireland at some point when Joe is to go on, and we get to the airplane scene, and Billy ends up asking Joe about like, well, hey, tell me about Ireland. And so she goes on to have this story about this hero that was there, and and talks about that story. But anyways, Billy goes on and is looking about what to do next, and his decision is like, well, hey, we're gonna go on and sell this car and get a better one, and so we end up also having his heart that says chase me. So the next thing we see here is a guy who is to seemingly be in his car, just kind of minding his own business at this stoplight. He all of a sudden is to get seemingly rear-ended. The car owner ends up getting out of the car to make his way into the car behind him to yell at whoever's in the car. And once this person goes to said car, there's no one inside of it. He kind of pops his head back out, realizing that both Billy and Joe had jumped into his car. Conveniently, also, this guy's car has the keys within it, so they just drive on off. So we have the guy who has gotten his car stolen be chasing after the car, calling them effing bastards, and just being, of course, distraught and upset. It also is kind of interesting how after a certain point he goes on and he calls the car because the car has a phone, and he starts screaming and yelling at him about how ticked off he is. So we realize that the car is to be a BMW that they stole, and Billy goes on to state that BMW stands for Better Make Way, and Joe is to go, "Oh, well, I thought that the BMW meant break my windows." So Joe starts to make his way, or makes her way, my apologies. Joe starts to make her way through the cassette tapes, goes on and realizes, man, this guy needed his car stolen because his CD collection is crap. Billy goes on to say, like, hey, I got it covered. He goes on and he has his own personal mixtape, and he puts it in the car, and it's some kind of just techno dance mix of some kind. But if anything, it's actually just pretty interesting music. Nothing wrong with it. I actually like the music in this movie. Like there's some hip hop music, and like there actually is some pretty decent music in this movie. Also, it seems that the guy in the car has some crappy food that Joe just chucks out the window. Also, but it seems that this guy was to have kept this little handheld device, this little video game thing. That it seems that they keep going on and playing throughout this movie at certain points, and come to find out, this is to be a game within it that's all about them driving, and it's kind of like a chase game anyways. So we kind of see bits and pieces of it at certain points. So After the phone call coming from the guy who is to have gotten his car stolen to call the car, and Billy goes on and takes the phone and he thrusts it out the window. We then would go on to find both Billy and Joe making their way to uh, this window display that has these shoes and this hat and this mannequin that has sunglasses on it. So Joe goes on and is to take this garbage can and chucks it into the window display. The only reason why she was to go on and do that was just to steal the sunglasses. So I'm like, wow, like you went on to go out of your way to break into this thing to set this alarm off just to get a pair of sunglasses. Kind of get those anywhere at any price. So it is kind of funny when Joe puts on the sunglasses. We have Billy throughout a good chunk of the movie who's like heckling her about the sunglasses. At some point, he calls them the shades from hell, and he's like, "Are you really gonna keep those sunglasses?" And it kind of gets to the point to where then Joe is to go on and start adjusting her sunglasses throughout this film. So we even have Joe that ends up asking Billy, it's like, well, hey, what do you think about the sunglasses? And he's like, well, I've seen better. He's like, I doubt it. So, or Joe says, I doubt it. Billy is going on and painting, spray painting the back of this car, saying it's like, well, hey, do you know how much it costs to paint a car like this? So as we start to see the cop cars make their way to both Billy and Joe's car, Billy takes his spray can and chucks the spray paint. The two of them get in the car and they drive off. Come to find out, the police car is actually a huge transit car that really is to be very slow going. So, if anything, Billy goes on and does this flip and goes on and is to drive backwards, and because of how just really this car is to be no match to this BMW, like Billy is to just go on and make kind of fun here. Also, this kind of reminds me of the Fast and Furious movie. It might have been the Too Fast Too Furious where Paul Walker goes on and flips the car and is to be a bit of a joke and have fun. But anyways, so we have the guys in the back kind of give their backseat driving of like go after him, come on, yeah. So eventually we would of course easily have Billy that loses these guys, and they would go on and they would call for uh for support for them to find kind of these other cars they're going to chase after Billy's, of course. And so we find that Billy's within this tunnel and these cop cars are chasing after him. This is actually pretty interesting because we have Billy that when he's driving in this tunnel, there is just a load of cones that are just right in the middle of this tunnel here. So while Billy's driving, he's just consistently knocking over the cones on purpose, so that way every single one of these cones will go on and at some point hit the cop cars. We also have Joe that the closer and closer these cop cars get, she's like, well, I'll just go on and I'll just start throwing the cassette collection because if anything, like this collection sucks anyways. So she's going on and she starts chucking these cassettes and she's rattling off whatever these tapes were Dire Straits or Whitney Houston and this and that. So going on and giving the finger to the cops. So eventually, of course, again, Billy and Joe, they figure out a way to evade the cops. And Joe is so enthralled in this video game that, like, she's just really just spending so much time on this game. So we have Billy that's like, okay, I think we've kind of waited long enough. Like, I don't think the cops are going to go on and notice us. And Joe is like, well, hey, how about give it a couple of more seconds? We start to see off in the distance some cops just driving by, and then they wait the seconds, and then there's more cops that surpass it. Well, hey, I guess it was a good idea that they waited a little bit longer. So we then go on and have Joe and Billy that meet up with these two guys, Monkey and Bebop. They get into the car and or no wait. Uh, maybe Bebop comes in later. Uh, Monkey and some other guy, or these two guys. So they get into the car and they notice the game. They're like, "Hey, 5,000 high score." So yeah, I think Monkey comes in a little bit later here. So Billy goes on a ways at some of his old friends, and that's where he meets Monkey. And Monkey's with a girl named Becky. So Billy goes on and asks where uh, Bebop is, and Bebop, yeah. So like all these, I guess they were just be random guys that just thrust their way into this car that both uh, Joe and Billy were in. I don't know who they were. So because as Billy goes on and turns, that's when he meets up with Bebop, and it seems that Bebop was always getting crap about his hat, and it kind of gets to the point to where Bebop then goes on to then continue to change his hat throughout this film, to the point of him having this kind of at first this kind of flannel uh, ball cap, but then he has this kind of almost like fedora disheveled one that he's to go on and say is all alone. It honestly looked like on the side of Bebop's hat, there's to be this kind of ink uh, security thing that he had on the side of his head, but maybe that was to just be the way that the hat was just designed. It just looked weird to me. So the later we get here, we eventually go on and find uh, that Tommy is also to make his way to this area, and Billy used to go on and ask Bebop if they're going to be able to sell this the BMW that he just stole, and they would also come to find that there is a taxi car that Bebop had just kind of stole himself. So Bebop lets Billy know that it seems that Tommy is kind of giving him the eyeball, is kind of looking for him. So Billy goes on and is well, F him then. And so we all of a sudden come to find that there are helicopters zooming over this place. Everybody, as quickly as possible, is trying to evacuate. Joe is trying to get Billy back to the car, but Joe is kind of run off to try and get something. We kind of find out that that something isn't all that important, but it's to be his mixtape. So, pause here for a second. So, as Billy and Joe go on to exchange cigarettes here, we have Joe going on and turn to Billy and saying, "Hey, welcome home." Speaking of home, Billy is sure to go on and retrace his steps back home, to come to find out that when he goes on and knocks on the door, he will find a woman by the name of Sarah waiting for him there. A woman that it seems that Billy has no knowledge of. So Billy goes on and asks Sarah if his father is home, and it seems that he's not. So Billy goes on and says, "Well, like, hey, can I just come in and collect my stuff?" Sarah goes on and allows Billy to come in, and when he goes into his room, it seems that there's nothing really there. Sarah goes on to explain to Billy that all of his stuff was thrusted into a caravan, and we get to realize that Billy to his father is to just kind of be persona non grata. That since this guy had gone on to do this crime, Billy is just kind of been kind of thrown out of this house in a way. So Billy goes on to make his way to his caravan, and his father makes his way back into the house. So Billy finds the caravan and looks into it, and is to find this mannequin, the skateboard, and a number of things that are to go on and be his. So here's where we go on and we transition to the airplane just kind of flying by, and the two of them are going on asking one another, "Hey, have you ever gone and been in an airplane?" No. And so Billy goes on and asks Joe about Ireland, and here's the story that she gives about the local hero, and so and also saying how for Joe, where she was from in Ireland, they didn't really need prisons, and that was kind of really interesting because she would talk about if anybody did anything wrong, they would just get kneecapped or whopped in the knees. So I kind of was like, okay, this is kind of a different kind of approach of punishment, I guess, if anything. But so the next thing we see is on the telly. Conway is in this interview, and he's going on and being questioned about what exactly the police will need for them to be able to kind of do their jobs properly. Do they need more guns? Do they need more people? What do they need? And Conway's like, well, we definitely don't need more guns in the streets. And so Conway just kind of gives in, and you realize, you know what? I don't think I can exactly give you an answer. I'm just a policeman. I don't know. I don't know what could really be the real true answer. And so we end up seeing this dart gun being fired as Joe is to have this kind of just this little pistol that fires off this little rubber dart that slaps onto the telly. And Bebop comes in and looks at the television. It's like, hey, nice shot. So both Joe and both Bebop start to go on and look at all the stuff that they have in the caravan. Bebop goes on and is to kind of complain to Joe about the weird video game that she's gone on to play. And while that's going on, Billy is to try to make this coffee and he eventually burns his hand. It'll get further and further into the movie that they'll be pushed to go to the store specifically just to get to this kettle so that way Billy can go on and just be able to have this coffee and not have it burn his hand. So, uh, back again to what I was saying here. So both Joe and Bebop start going on and rifling through this stuff. Joe goes on, makes fun of the fact that Billy had a skateboard, saying that it was very 80s. Joe will start rifling through, I think, this like sticker collection. I don't know what this was. If anything, that's my only thought of what it actually was. Uh, they'll also start to rifle through these photos and eventually find Billy's uh, bit of cassette tapes going on and saying that Billy had a dark past because of his cassettes, going on and looking at Twisted Sisters and all these other kind of bands. So the three of them leave. So they make their way to the plaza. They go on inside this building to come to find there's just a bunch of just kind of games here. And for those of you that are kind of unsure what kind of games I mean here, they're kind of like arcade games. This kind of is to be like the equivalent of like a Chuck E. Cheese in my mind. And if you guys don't know what a Chuck E. Cheese is, yeah, like man, have you been missing out in your life? But also, for some people, like maybe this is kind of a mom and pop's thing, but there is also this place that I have nearby my residence, a place called Grand Slam that is just kind of have a number of just arcade stuff, but then also just has like uh, go karts and laser tags and like that kind of stuff. So if you guys don't know what a Grand Slam is, man, you're kind of missing out also. But anyways, pushing on here. So all of this is just to lead to reunite with Monkey again, and also to reunite with Tommy, who's kind of off in the distance. So Tommy, it seems, is making a deal with a kid, and eventually that deal will lead him to be forced into selling drugs. And the kid doesn't want to go on and sell these drugs, but feasibly, uh, Tommy will go on and tell him here, it's like, well, hey, if you sell these drugs, like, you're going to make a whole lot more money than you would actually from this deal. So you should definitely take the deal, kid. So Billy goes on and talks to uh, the person that is kind of either handing out the tokens or the tickets, whatever this kind of exchange of things are to get these people to just kind of play these games. So as Billy goes on and just asks for a single from this woman, and they start to kind of uh, talk to one another. Like she welcomes him back, and they just kind of had this nice little exchange between the two of them. The woman goes on and gives Billy a ticket or Billy a token or whatever on the house, and so Billy goes on and re-meets up with Joe as Joe is just kind of playing around with these games. And as soon as they almost make their way out of here, they bump into Tommy. So Howie's like, "Oh, hey, long time, mate. Yeah, like, uh, fancy little business." Uh, Billy ends up going on and telling Tommy that he doesn't work for him, and he leaves. Uh, Tommy goes on and bumps into Bebop and Monkey as they leave also. So Tommy and Pony here are kind of having this exchange here. And Pony is going on and telling Tommy, it's like, well, hey, you got to watch over after him. And Tommy tells Pony, it's like, hey, man, like, you're a pusher, like, you're a dealer. Like, if anything, like, do what you should actually be doing. You're just wasting your time doing anything else. So the next thing we see here is Billy and Joe. Billy turns to Joe, and here's where he goes on and makes fun of her shades and calls them the shades from hell. And it's like, hey, you're gonna go on, you're gonna get some new sunglasses tonight because I hate those. So, uh, we also have Billy that goes on and hands Joe a present. Come to find out, the present is to be a shirt that's to be in her color because I guess she likes black. We kind of tell that by her leather black shirt. So Joe goes on and is to specifically within the car take this shirt off so we can kind of just see her back. And she, of course, is kind of playing to the camera. And Billy goes on and tells Joe, it's like, well, hey, if the size is wrong, don't try to take it back to the store because, of course, it's something that he possibly stole. So both Billy and Joe go on and they pick up Monkey. Monkey's going on and being screamed at his mother, Mrs. Taylor, as Taylor goes on and asks Monkey, hey, where are you going? And he says Sunday school as he gives her the bird and walks off. And Taylor ends up saying, I'll be locking the door. And so Billy ends up turning to Monkey. It's like, well, hey, nice one, your mother. So we have a guy named Diz. Diz, I believe, is actually to be the guy who was to have played Galactus in the Fantastic Four film. Diz goes on and he makes his way through Tommy's place, and Dix goes on and talks about how the cars are here. He explains this to Pony and then goes on and makes his way to Tommy and explains again how the cars are here. Tommy goes on and says, tell the boys to turn in by the Pilgrim Street, and if anything, there's kind of a what? Like, if anything, there's no stores around there. So Tommy goes on and like, well, hey, we're not going on and we're not stealing. If anything, we're kind of much more trying to take care of some competition. So Billy, Joe, and Monkey, they're all in a car together. Monkey is noticing that Joe is lighting a cigarette, and so Monkey ends up asking Joe. It's like, well, hey, can I have a drag? And Joe is like, no, you're quite too young. So uh, Joe ends up calling Monkey a sandbag, and in hopes if there is to go on and be another car chase, that Monkey will go on and be uh, a sandbag if shooting start to happen, and to just kind of say that if anything, Monkey is expendable. So it is kind of funny that Joe will not allow Monkey to get a drag of her cigarette, but hey, if bullets start to go through you and it misses us, then all for the better. So Billy goes on to explain to Monkey, it's like, well, hey, don't worry about it, because if anything, the police don't really have guns. So Tommy goes on and gets into his cars, and Pony is to make this statement, and Tommy is to shut him up, and so they drive off. Billy, Joe, and Monkey get into this elevator with Bebop, and Bebop starts to go on and talk about how uh, people are mean, and when certain people are saying that they're going to be gone for 3 hours, they are going to be exactly gone for 3 hours, and that if anything, they should take advantage of that by stealing people's cars. Because when they go into the parking lots and they let their car sit for 3 hours, they're going to be gone for that length. So again, we go on and like while they're in the elevator, they're playing this game. Billy can't quite figure it out, and so Joe goes on to explain it to him, and he still's like, I just don't get it. So by the time they make their way up this elevator and they listen to some tunes and they're kind of bobbing their heads, they make their way into this club. They start to go on and they throw a bit of change onto the ground or onto the counter, and eventually get their beers. Uh, we have Joe that goes on and explains the beer and complains about the beer not being Guinness. Like, well, yeah, of course she's gonna make that crack. So as we make our way through the club, we see that Billy is commingling with a woman, and Joe is looking off in the distance. Bebop turns to Joe. It's like, well, hey, why don't you guys fuck? And Joe ends up kind of making this good point about uh, if you don't get humped, you don't get dumped. Probably to say like don't where you eat is pretty much where she's saying. Because if the two of them were to go on to have a relationship, then they probably wouldn't have uh, the relationship that they have with them stealing stuff. So we see Tommy making his way with his men to the police parking lot. He goes on, he is to take this back to a number of police cars. Eventually gets to the point where when they're wreaking havoc on these cars, police start to make their way out there, and Tommy starts beating up these police cars, police cops and cars. So eventually Conway makes his way out there, and that's when things start to break up. Billy and Joe walk their way through the streets, and Joe talks to Billy about the girl that he was with, saying it's like, oh no, that girl wouldn't be right for you. That girl's not really your type. And Billy's like, oh, you jealous? So it kind of starts this whole bit of conversation. And Joe's like, oh no, 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 like I thought you would probably catch something like rabies or something like that. So Billy goes on and is to eventually make his way into the street. As cars start to pass, Billy is to go on and want this adrenaline rush. He comes to find that this truck is coming down the road, and Billy is to kind of brace himself to pretend that he's going to go on and get hit here. This kind of just seemed fairly similar to the Kevin Bacon movie Footloose. You go on, you have the girl who is to talk about how she would just stand there and scream and just kind of wait to get hit by this train. So eventually, Kevin Bacon's character runs, grabs her, and thrusts her out of the train and realizes how crazy this woman really is. So Billy goes on and he has to kind of recreate that, showing that he's ready to get hit by this truck. And then the truck passes, and Joe is screaming out for Billy, calling him an effing bastard. And all of a sudden, as the truck finally does pass, we would find that Billy is completely unharmed. That I guess Billy had just kind of walked off too much of the side to where the truck wouldn't go on and actually hit him. So Joe kind of gets upset about that. So the next thing we see here is Tommy talking to a guy named Stevie. He's trying to get like $40 out of all these things that he's probably stole. Stevie goes on to this whole rant about how it's getting harder to sell Tommy's products. So he's trying to lowball him here. He's trying to say, "Hey, like how would I get like $20 for this or 25?" And then works his way up to I think like $30 or $35, and like they kind of make the deal here. Tommy is to just kind of be kind of frustrated though because of how all these people want to go on and not pay him any money or lowball him, and how Tommy is realizing how like much he's really benefiting all these people by them selling his items. So even Tommy even breaks certain things of the items just for how upset he gets. But anyways, here's where he goes on and he meets up with Joe, and the two of them have this bit of conversation here. So here's where Tommy talks about Joe, about how all these people need him, and that he's the man, and so let me pause for a second. So Tommy talks to Joe about how Billy really is to too much be working on his own, and then at some point that Joe should really be with Tommy, how like he's a little bit more organized, and how Billy is really just some adrenaline junkie, and like at this point is trying to manipulate Joe here, and that's what kind of comes down to most of the conversation, also to kind of lead up uh, to Tommy saying to Joe, it's like, well, he's not as good as he thinks. So the next thing we see here is Billy having his TV on, and he's not really watching it. He's more so sleeping because he was going to sleep all day because there's nothing really going on to do during the day. So because Billy realizes if feasibly they're to go on and just kind of watch TV during the day, like all there's going to be is like Stingrays and Sesame Streets and just all this crap. So here's where we again have Billy who's trying to make coffee and burns his hand again. Joe says, hey, maybe we should definitely go on and get you a new one. And Billy all of a sudden notices out of his window that he's going to go on and get interrupted by Conway here. Conway goes on and starts making his way to the caravan and starts poking through all of Billy's stuff. Conway goes on to ask Billy about a theft last night, and he's kind of curious if feasibly Billy's to have anything that would kind of match up to that to that uh, uh, to that crime. That's what I was trying to say here. So Conway goes on and asks Billy about it, and he goes on to, of course, answer no, and Conway goes on to notice that Billy has some TVs, and Billy's like, "Well, yeah, those are gifts," and it's like, "Well, could you prove those are gifts?" And he's like, "Well, I don't have to. I know my rights." So he goes on to say, "I've been watching a lot of L.A. Law." So we have Joe. She's in the car with Peters. Joe wants to go on and leave the car, and Peters tells her not to, and then hands her some cigarettes. So Conway says that Billy is to go on and even just collect trash and rubbish in his caravan. And they start to give us kind of backstory between the characters, saying how long that they've known one another, and asking why is Billy still going on and still stealing, and and asking him if he likes to go to prison. So asking him why he continues to steal. So again, Conway is to ask him about the shops, and Billy is to go on and say, "Hey, yeah, look underneath my bed. I go on and I have a bunch of TVs underneath it," or look into the fridge, or look by the fridge near the table. I have a microwave just stolen under there. I also have a food mixer. Look at all the things that I have. Just condescendingly just saying, like, yeah, there's no way that Billy could have stolen a bunch of items because he doesn't have anything, because he doesn't have here. So Conway walks out of the caravan, and so Billy further makes more jokes to Conway, saying like, "Well, hey, maybe the next time you see me, I'll have a suit for you. I'll get one of polyester. Maybe I'll get you a tie." So something nice for him. So both Billy and Joe make their way back to the caravan to look at how disheveled the place is now because of Conway making his way through there. So Billy and Joe re-meet back up with Monkey and Bebop here. Bebop is now wearing a ski cap, and come to find out, they're at this visual. The this morning site that has a bunch of candles and flowers and everything like that. Monkey had gone on at one point to tell Billy about this story about a guy driving, and he crashed his car, and he crashed into a thing of cement. So I guess this is probably what this candlelight visual is for. So Billy and Joe go into this car or go into the store, and Joe goes on and is to thrust on this hat. As Billy goes on and makes his way in the store, he realizes that there's an alarm system that is to be obviously pointed out, and there's a bunch of cameras that are to be all around this store. The guy who is running the store is going on and telling both Billy and both Joe that they're closing soon, and Billy turns to Joe. It's like, well, hey, this was a nice little shop, but whatever happened to it? And Joe says, yeah, people kept driving cars through it. That's why it's not a nice little shop anymore. So, as Billy and Joe walk their way out of this store, they realize that there's to be this kind of garage door that kind of slides down. And so it seems that the two of them are going to go on and make their way into stealing within his store. And Billy honestly is kind of very hesitant because, like, well, man, like, I don't think there's going to be any way we can break into this kind of store. Like, you would probably need guns or something like that. Like, so they're kind of contemplating. They're realizing that maybe they could just be asking for way too much trouble if they're going on and doing it. And but they realize, like, well, hey, what else could we do? So the next thing we see is Venny. Vinny is going on and talking to his driver and is going to force his way through this town as he realizes how much filth and how much he distastes it. So Vinny goes on to make his way to meet up with Tommy. So they go on and they talk about that this is a house call, and Vinny is asking Tommy where his stuff is, and Tommy says it's upstairs. So as Vinny and Tommy make their way to get to the stuff, we have Vinny's driver that starts to follow uh, Vinny here, and Tommy's people stop this driver and tell him, hey, shoot back into your car, because if anything, this is a really bad neighborhood. Cars can get stolen all the time. We have Billy and we have Joe, and they're in these cars adjacent to one another, or across from one another. And Joe gives Billy this gift of this scanner, so Billy can go on and listen to this radio to see if the car to the to see if the cops are coming. So the next thing we see here is both Vinny and Tommy, and Vinny goes on to talk to Tommy about how this place is a disgrace, and Tommy turns to Vinny. It's like, well, hey, you used to live here too, so I guess it wasn't all that bad. So Vinny and Tommy make their way to the products, and Vinny takes a certain specific interest in this blazer that is being held up by this mannequin. Tommy goes on and gives him a price for this blazer, and Vinny tries to lowball him. I believe Tommy ends up asking for a price of 60, and or maybe no, maybe he says more than that. Maybe it's I think Yeah, maybe Tommy goes on and asks for 50, and Vinny lowballs him. I think probably goes on and asks for much less than that. And the further and further they start talking here, Tommy's like, "Well, hey, man, like, I'm the only one that's going on and giving you these items." And Vinny's like, "Dude, I can find anybody like you." And Tommy's like, "Well, yeah, I'm sure you can, but they won't go on and give you the stuff that I'm giving you." So, yeah, so Tommy goes on and asks for 80, and Vinny lowballs him, and he's like, "Well, hey, I'll give you 50 for him." So they haggle for the price, and they end up coming to a very much middle ground. I think it was like 60, 65, somewhere in there. And Vinny is like, "Okay, I'll accept that." So Tommy is to go on and realize that he's gonna need to break into this store called Alaska, and that's going to be the way for Tommy to go on and to be able to get these blazers. So the next thing we see is Tommy and both Joe, who have made their way to the front of this mall and are seeing a bunch of TV screens and this camera recorder. They're going to break through this wall to get into the store. Billy had gone on to find out that Tommy was going to make his way tomorrow into the Alaska. So Billy thought it'd be a good idea for them to break into the Alaska tonight, so that way Tommy will have a really tough time getting to the store tomorrow. So Joe turns to Billy and tells that the spot that they're going to be driving through is very fragile, and also that she's going to be the one driving. So Joe gets into the car, thrusts her way through a number of these walls and these mannequins and just a whole bunch of the products within the store, and they get to a point where they stop and they make their way to this kind of uh, surfboard display with all of these kind of just surfboard items and surfing items. So, and Hawaiian shirts and mannequins and what have you. So when they get in there, all of a sudden the fire uh, sprinklers start going off. So the sprinkler system above them starts going off. So there's no real fire there. The just sprinkler just go off for reasons unexplained. So we have them getting all wet here, and they look at the sign and they read it and they call out to it of Tobago. So here is where thumbnail will come to play here. We have Joe that goes on and is to find this mannequin of sunglasses that she likes. She goes on, takes the sunglasses, and then licks the mannequin's face, and then takes off the hairpiece on top of it, and is to just kind of have a bit of fun here. So Billy goes on and takes his umbrella and starts to make his way through these items and starts sifting through them. It seems that they're all in kind of these kind of display these glass displayers. So Billy eventually will go on and find this kettle, and he'll keep making this joke in a way. He'll say this, but it'll be in a kind of a joking, laughing manner. Billy will go on and on about how this kettle that he's picking up is like $90. So, but it doesn't matter because they're stealing it anyways. Billy goes on to explain the price to Joe, while Joe is going on and knocking off all these mannequins and meeting up with Billy for them to talk about how this item is to be very well pricey. So Billy goes on and takes the kettle, and Joe makes her way to this clothing. Billy notices all these cigarettes and starts taking them, and then goes on to realize over the radio that the police are coming. So Billy turns to Joe and saying like, "Hey, we got to get out of here. We got to leave soon." And Joe is still like, "Well, hey, give me a minute. I'm going to thumb through these clothes." And he goes on to find this Joe goes on and finds a specific shirt and is to realize that things aren't to ever really be in her size. Billy is starting to get more and more frustrated with Joe. It's like, "Hey, we got to get out of here." So Joe finally does go on and find the shirt that she wants, so they leave. Here's again where we get the Dalmatians. We get them in statue form. So now we have both Joe and both Billy. They're in this Porsche, and so they, of course, are driving off to be chased by police. They're to go on and try to escape from the police, and they wind up within uh, this place that is to have this kind of bit of opening above them. So, getting out of this cop car, we'd find that it's Peters, the guy who is going on and offering Joe a cigarette and telling her not to get out of the car before, while Conway was talking to Billy about why he does the things that he does. So, Peters goes on and gets out of the car to try to confront Billy and Joe, to all of a sudden find above him that there are a number of people that are tossing bricks, and I think that there is one appliance, but it was a really like large bulky item. So these bricks and these things are coming through what is to seemingly be this like almost metal like fencing uh, or netting that eventually breaks because of the weight of all these bricks and this also heavy appliance item. So this cop car ends up getting pummeled with all this stuff to eventually have one of the cop cars explode. One of the police officers grabs Peters to try to save him. So the next thing we see here is Pony going on to explain to Tommy what had happened to Alaska. And Tony ends up getting so upset that he ends up going on and saying, like, well, like that guy, he's effing dead. So Joe and Billy go on and get out of the car, and they realize that there's no way that they can keep this Porsche. So Billy had almost also forgotten his kettle, so Joe gives it to him. So they go on and they burn the car, and then they leave it, which is kind of really sad. Because of course they're burning a Porsche. So Billy makes his way back to his father's place, and he through this kind of keyhole or through this little hole in the door, he goes on and he is to thrust these cigarettes through the door, I guess to give to his father. We see at the staircase that Billy's father is going on and smoking these cigarettes, so I guess that's what these cigarettes are really for. Billy goes on and continues to ring the doorbell, and then he leaves. The next thing we see is Billy and Joe making their way back to his caravan, and the two of them are talking about how uh, you can't buy happiness, and it depends on where I guess you shop. So Billy goes on to explain about how his kettle actually being great and how it's worth every stolen penny. So Joe goes on to tell Billy, it's like, well, yeah, but you didn't buy any cups though. And Billy's like, well, yeah, maybe later I'll think about that. So the next thing we see is Tommy making his way to Billy's caravan and starting to destroy it with his gang. Billy realizes that Tommy is to be very upset, and so both Joe and Billy start running off, and of course, Tommy's chasing them. Billy and Joe are to be so far ahead that, of course, they end up getting away from Tommy. Tommy ends up thrusting this bat in anger and screaming out, "Where is Billy?" So, as Billy and Joe get so far away from the two of them, when Billy and Joe finally do come back to the scene of the crime, so to speak, or the caravan, they find a sign that says RIP, and all the stuff is to be destroyed, and the caravan is to be flipped over. So Billy is to kind of be distraught now, like, well, hey, where am I going to go next? So the two of them start walking. Joe doesn't exactly know where exactly they're going, and eventually Joe will find out that Billy is taking her to kind of this abandoned uh, place where all of uh, these train uh, train pieces are all just kind of laying there, just staying there to just be collecting dust. So Billy is to go on and take uh, one of these parts of this train and just make that to be his home temporarily. Billy says that this is gonna one of the cars. That's what I was trying to say. The cars of the train. So Joe ends up asking Billy if if it seems that it's going to be safe for him to just stay here. And it's like, well, yeah, it's better than a hostel, and it probably is cleaner too. So the two of them go on and they cook another kettle, and we have Billy that goes on and talks about pigs in space. So I believe here is where Joe goes on and she's talking about how she's getting older and things are starting to get harder for them trying to steal things. And here's where Joe starts to talk to Billy about, like, well, hey, maybe we should get out of here. Maybe go to the Bahamas uh, or someplace else. So maybe Miami. So eventually, Joe goes on and continues to talk, and further they talk about Billy probably going back to prison. And Joe says, like, hey, maybe we should just steal a car and just get out of here. And Billy goes on to say that he can't just do that, that this place is his home. And here is where Jo goes on, and she also kisses Billy. And when Billy goes on and rejects her kiss, eventually stating about how sex isn't so safe in the 90s, Jo goes on and walks away, and then Billy ends up asking Jo, it's like, well, hey, where are you going? And she's like, well, I'm just going to bed. So as Jo walks off, she makes her way to find that Tommy has figured out where she had lived, and the two of them had their bit of conversation together. Tommy goes on to tell Jo that that she needs to control her man and keep him on a tight leash. And the further of this conversation is to have Tommy go on and have this razor blade, and he goes on to cut into Jo's shirt and then grab her chest and start kissing her and getting a very intimate moment here. But all this is going to lead to Jo telling Tommy, it's like, well, hey, like, don't ever touch me again. So Tommy goes and immediately touches her, and it's like, oh, yeah, like, I guess you aren't exactly going to go on to do anything. And then he leaves. So all this was just a manipulation tactic for Tommy and Jo to work together, but Jo has no real true interest in that happening. So the following day, Billy, Monkey, and Bebop all meet together. Well, also Jo all meet up together, and they make their way to this mall. Jo turns to Billy. It's like, well, hey, what are we doing? And he says, like, well, hey, we're going window shopping. Excuse me. We have Billy going on and contemplating about busting into this mall, and eventually he turns to Monkey and Bebop and tells him that. While this is going on, as they're making their way through this mall, we have Pony who is noticing these guys and eventually will relay this message to Tommy about what their plans are. So Billy talks to Monkey and both Bebop about his plans. But like, well, hey, do you think it'll be possible if we go on and we steal from this mall? And Bebop's like, I don't know about this. Like, it's way too big. Like, I don't know. I don't think it's gonna work. But eventually, Billy's to go on and give these guys convincing, but they go on with the plan. So Billy goes on to make his way back to his place, his little train car, and when he makes his way to the train car, he calls out for Jo, but Pony then appears behind him. Pony then goes on to grab Billy here to take him to Tommy's. Tommy goes on to say, it's like, well, hey man, I know that you're going on, you're doing this mall. Like, here's where manipulation comes in with Tommy to ask Billy, like, well, hey, how about we work together? Like, if anything, you're not going to be able to steal all that stuff all on your own. So how about we all work together and we can all make money? So Billy's like, well, hey, that seems like a nice idea, but you know what? Like, I don't think I'm going to go on and give you an answer today. I'll give you an answer tomorrow. So as Billy leaves, they realize, hey, like, I know exactly what this guy's going to do. he's not giving us an answer today because he's going to go on and he's going to steal within the mall today and make it to where like tomorrow will never happen. So Tommy goes on and realizes that he's like, well, hey, if I know that this is going to go on and go down tonight, then how about I go on and I call the police and stop this from ever happening? So, kind of a bit of a smart chess move there. So, we have Joe rifling through her stuff, packing all her things, and she's kind of combing her hair in a different way. We just throughout this film just consistently keep seeing that Joe keeps kind of tweakingly changing her looks up. So Joe goes on, meets up with Billy, and she kind of just says that she's leaving here. And Billy's like, well, why? Why are you leaving? So Billy goes on to tell Joe that he's like, you know what, I can't really do this without you. And if anything, like, you know what, how about you and me? How about we do one last job? So that way, uh, like, they'll remember us forever. And eventually it takes some convincing to Joe, but Billy goes on and hands her a cigarette and tells her to feel the force. And I guess that is to be the one quote that is to just be the biggest argument of like, oh yeah, like definitely we should go on and we should do this. Like we have the picture here of him actually doing that and saying that, feel the force. So Joe goes along with it. So we even have a point where Joe is to possibly think that all of what's going to transpire here is going to actually be a trap. And Billy's like, well, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. So, because he starts to think about it too, that Tommy's going to figure out uh, that Billy's going to want to go on and steal this mall at this specific night. So, as they make their way through this parking lot and notice these cameras here, Joe goes on and dismantles one of them. And so their big plan about how they're going to get into this mall and put on masks to hide their identities, and they end up getting to this BMW. So they're hoping that once they go on and they steal this mall, that they're going to get some big recognition. That if anything, they're gonna be on TVs in prime time. They're gonna be famous. So we have Billy that goes on and does the old West kind of thing of settle up everybody. So they go on and they all get in their cars, and we have Monkey that goes on and he puts on this Michael Jackson mask, and he's like, "Oh my God, I'm the king of pop. I've always wanted to be black." And Bebop turns to him. It's like, "Well, yeah, keep dreaming." So we have Joe, and she puts in the scanner, and Billy asks Joe, "It's like, hey, hear anything? Hear anything?" And she's like, "No, I haven't heard anything." So Billy immediately thinks that there's nothing really going on. He says words like "wicked," and so both Bebop's car and Billy's car start driving their way to the store. We come to find that Conway is to seemingly be having a perch off in the high ground, the top of the store, and is just kind of watching. So the two cars try as fast as they can to make their way to the store, all of a sudden there's this huge bright light that blinds all of the drivers and they force them to swerve. Bebop and Monkey's car crashes into all these carts and they die by the impact, which is sad. So it's sad, boo-hoo. So I should have said that a little bit more emotionally, but I was like, nah, whatever, they just die. So Joe and Billy upset by the loss of their friends as we turn to see that, yeah, definitely the two of them are both freaking dead. So Billy here is to now have to figure out a way to maneuver and find a way to get around these cops. And Billy at this point is realizing how there's way too many cops here. So he's trying to maneuver and swerve and everything like that to get away from these cars. We have Tommy off in the distance, kind of understanding what exactly is going on here as this bright light is to be spanned on him. I think it's a helicopter car. So Tommy ends up saying bye bye, Billy, as he shoots this basketball. Because, of course, the basketball had been a scene before where Tommy was talking to Billy and saying, like, well, hey, how about we kind of work together and and Billy going on and saying, like, well, hey, I'll give you the answer tomorrow. So we get to a point where Billy and Joe, they're in this kind of this thing underneath the stores, and they're kind of hiding out, hoping that the police cars won't find them there. So eventually, what does happen is to be that uh, Joe ends up saying, Billy, it's like, well, yeah, I guess this is going to be something to have people remember us by. And so the police do go on and find Billy and Joe's car, realizing that this chase is going to continue. So Billy decides he's going to play chicken with the car. So the two cars are going to go on and collide with one another. The police realize that Billy is not going to stop, so they swerve. Billy keeps on going, and Billy is to go on and be ever so excited by the fact that he was go on and be able to play chicken and win. That eventually he does not go on and notice that there are other cop cars that are surrounding the area, and he crashes right into one and he goes flying. And we'll come to find that both Joe and Billy, they're both just kind of just bloodied messes, and they're just on the cop car, not exactly knowing if they're both either dead, alive, or whichever. But Joe does go on and open up his eyes, and he goes on to see this mannequin in front of him. So the last bit of thing that we see here in this film is that Joe's going on and looking at this mannequin, and we would see that that mixtape has gone on to just kind of spiral stuff out of the mixtape to realize how this tape is now ruined. So the last thing we see here is Conway and the police getting out of their vehicles and checking on this car to see if the people are all right or dead or whatever. And like that's kind of the wrapping up of this movie to realize that it doesn't end with a happy ending, sadly enough. So I'm gonna go on and get the heck out of here. Uh, Thank you for going on and watching this. However you were to go on and do it, I appreciate anybody going on and doing so. I apologize at any points I was going on and yawning here. It's also just it's been a while since going on and doing this, but then also as well, um, feasibly I probably should have gone on and done this a little bit way earlier in my day. But regardless, at least I'm gone on to say that I did this review, so at least that's going to be out there. It's better to do something than nothing, I guess. So but thank you for going on and watching this. I do appreciate it. Hopefully, I'll go on and be able to continue to keep doing these more regularly. I hope. Uh, hopefully I'll go on and I'll make better choices and hopefully uh, justify these videos to be presented out in the future. But yeah, that I'm trying like I haven't been able to eat kind of enough throughout my day to day. So I'm just kind of really just struggling because of that. Uh, I'm really to just go on and even at like kind of every day, just kind of feeling like ugh, like I just feel just consistently sick. But if anything, yeah, like right now, things are just kind of just tight right now. So if anything, yeah, it's gonna go on and just be that consistent struggle. But if anything, yeah, we're hopefully gonna just keep uh, being able to put out these videos and getting my workouts and everything in between. But if anything, I'm gonna get the heck out of here. Goodbye, everybody. Goodbye, everybody.